This is Chuck Huber, the voice of Android 17. You're listening to Anime Seekers. You better be, or I'm coming for you. Dragon of the Darkness, Flame!
Jedi Squadron is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu, and now Star Wars content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hello, new Padawans, and welcome to the Jedi Squadron podcast. Here, you will be taking lessons in the many pieces of the Star Wars universe, whether it be the movies, animated series, video games, comics, and etc. This is your training into becoming a Star Wars fan as part of the Jedi Squadron. May your training go well, and may the Force be with you, young Padawans. What is going on, Star Wars Nation? This is the Jedi Squadron podcast, and I'm your host, Nathan Desai.
And I'm Rizwan Merchant.
And today, on our podcast presented by animesecrets.org, we are continuing our review of the Bad Batch. We previously reviewed the Bad Batch Season 1, and now we are going to be doing Season 2 today. So to give a bit of a recap on what happened in Season 2, Season 1. Sorry, my numbers are getting...
you just really want to get to Season 3. I get it. I'm with you. But we got to get through Season 2 first.
Yeah, totally. But
Patience, young Jedi. All things can come in good time.
That is true. So... to give a basic rundown of what happened in Season 1, the Bad Batch, they were labeled as traitor. So after Order 66 went down and the Republic was dissolved and turned into the Galactic Empire, the Bad Batch, they were all labeled traitors when they refused to slaughter innocent civilians under Tarkin's command, and everyone except Crosshair escaped. And they also got another genetically enhanced clone, a female one named Omega, who tagged along. And most of Season 2 was like them going through shenanigans. Like they were trying to evade Fennec Shand. Yes, Fennec Shand, the bounty hunter from Mandalorian. And Cad Bane, because they were both trying to capture Omega for these two Kaminoans. They started working for a Trandoshan informant named Sid, who was giving them jobs, and they went through a few episodic shenanigans there. They briefly met up with Rex so that they could all have their inhibitor chips removed. And in the final episode, finale, which was like a two-parter, Hunter got captured and taken to Tapoka City. That's the Kaminoan cloning facility, just as it was about to be destroyed by an Imperial officer named Admiral Rampart. And during that whole struggle, it was revealed that Crosshair was willingly working with the Empire. His chip was removed long ago, and they were all able to escape, and they offered Crosshair a chance to come back, but he refused to do so. And now we have another Kaminoan, Nala Se, who was working on, who's doing other cloning projects for the Empire. And that brings us to where we here are now. So this takes place roughly a year. So according to the Wikipedia, it takes place 18 BBY. So a year, because the previous season took place 19 BBY. So for those who don't know, BBY stands for Before Battle of Yavin. So basically before the events of A New Hope. So now Season 2, I'll go over a bit of a recap real quick, but Season 2 is a bit less, I mean, and maybe Riz will agree with me on this. This one isn't as doesn't have as much of an ongoing narrative. Like, it's a bit more episodic. Like, there's ongoing episodes there, but the plot is a little bit less coherent. So
it doesn't really make sense half the time. And this is a bit of a criticism I have for Bad Batch in general, is we don't have a strong story narrative throughout. We have threads of something that could be a strong narrative, but we never actually connect the dot.
Yep.
So, for example, um, we have the storyline of the Empire decommissioning its clones. That's one thing. Then you got Crosshair off on his own shenanigans. Then you got the entire "what the heck is up with Omega" thing, because that's a whole other plot line. And then just the general Bad Batch adopting to being surrogate fathers to Omega, which is a different plot line to me than the Omega plot line in general. And then also just shenanigans with life after the fall of the Republic.
Yep.
But throughout seasons 1 and 2, I don't see a lot of cohesive, here's the direction we're going in. Like, I know when we're watching Clone Wars, all of the seasons kind of led us to episode 3. And Rebels kind of all led us towards Rogue One and A New Hope territory. But the Bad Batch, I don't know the end game goal for it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Now, I just spent a few minutes talking some of the negatives of it, but the positives here are we get a lot of really good insight into the very early days of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always wondered, how did we transition from the clones to the stormtroopers? And who made the decision that we no longer need the clones after the Clone Wars ended? Because I actually thought for a little while that maybe the stormtroopers, while were transcripted from people, were also still somewhat clone based. And the only reason I even started thinking about them being transcripted is because of the sequel movies when we found Finn. Because I don't think we had any real. Well, no, okay, we had some stuff in Rebels where they kind of implied that we're going to be having people get transcripted in, but it wasn't super obvious that this is going to be their new model going forward. And I mentioned Finn, even though he's not a real stormtrooper from the Empire. I know he's from the New Order. I get all that, but the same model applies there in a way to me.
Yeah.
But to me, it just seemed like it was an odd thing to not have explained. So the Bad Batch does a good job filling in that one question. But was that the only purpose of the Bad Batch TV show, was to answer that one question? And honestly, 2 seasons in, I don't know if I have a real answer to that.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think, Nate?
I I'm gonna have to. I might have to wait until we get our like overall thoughts, because I don't know if I can kind of explain how I feel without like transitioning into my overall thoughts on this. I don't want to spoil anything at the end of this podcast.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, we
Yeah.
can come back to this definitely later on because I have way more thoughts on this than what I've even given right now. It's just these
Mm-hmm.
are my opening thoughts to kind of lead some of my discussion, having seen season 1 twice now, and season 1 finally in its entirety for the first time as of last night. Hooray me. I'm finally
Yeah.
catching up on my media.
All right, so let's give a basic rundown of the basic plot. I'll try to sum this up as best I can. So, the Bad Batch are still working for Sid. They go through a series of episodic shenanigans. The first episode, they go to the planet Sereno, where they try to where they try to raid Count Dooku's old castle. The only real significance here is that the Empire discovers they survived the destruction of Tipoca City. Uh, Tech participates in a race to get Sid out of trouble with someone she's in debt with. They go on a treasure hunt with Sid's friend Fee Genoa. They help a Wookiee Jedi outcast named Gunji evade Trandoshan Ravagers and reunite him with his tribe. There's a two-parter where they encourage a group of abused and starved workers to rise up against their exploitative and greedy boss after one of those workers steals their ship in desperation. They encounter a Zillo beast, um, same creature that we saw. I believe it was season 2 of the Clone Wars, but it was it was either season 2 or season 3 of the Clone Wars. But I think everybody knows what the Zillo beast is because that was kind of a big arc
Mm-hmm.
in the Clone Wars. And they help Fee evacuate the people of her home city before it's hit by a tsunami. Now, there is one big arc in the middle where Admiral Rampart attempts to propose a bill to have clones completely discontinued in favor of conscription soldiers for the Empire. Rex recruits the Bad Batch to assist in uncovering data to expose his unauthorized destruction of Tipoca City, and they succeed in doing it. And Rampart gets arrested, but clones end up still getting discontinued anyway because Palpatine shows up. One of the few rare times where he actually appears before the Senate, and he says, yes, Rampart did give the order, but the clones blindly followed it, so they are flawed. So we should probably end up just discontinue it anyway. And that results in an Echo briefly leaving the team to help Rex in rescuing clones that have been captured. We have 2 episodes revolving entirely around Crosshair, and when I say entirely, I do mean entirely. Like, just Crosshair. The Bad Batch aren't in these episodes at all. We get 1 episode where he returns to service for the Empire after he recovers from his injuries in the finale of the previous season. But he starts questioning everything he's fighting for. He and Commander Cody, who finally comes back. Thank God. I've been dying to have Cody come back.
Spoilers: Cody is Nathan's favorite clone, I think.
Well, he's one of my favorite clones. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
So Cody actually deserts the Empire after he and Crosshair were on a mission that exposes him to the violent nature of the Empire. And then we get another episode where he and Clone Commander Mayday are sent on a failed mission to basically just retrieve some armor. And Mayday gets injured, and they both nearly freeze to death in the process. But Crosshair drags him because Mayday is his brother, and he doesn't want his brother to die. So he drags him through. They nearly freeze to death, and then when they get there, the Imperial officer is all like, you failed the mission? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, he starts telling him off and not really caring. And that's when Crosshair realizes, wow, this Empire really does view us clones as all expendable. What the hell am I doing working for these people? And he turns on the Empire. And this leads to the finale where Crosshair, so he's now in custody on Ariadu, and he contacts the Bad Batch to warn them that Omega is being targeted by Dr. Hemlock. She's an Imperial scientist experimenting on clones, and she wants Omega because she's learned about Omega since Lama Su told her about him, told her about her in exchange for his freedom. And while they infiltrate the facility and attempt to save Crosshair, the Bad Batch get caught in the middle of a skirmish when Saw Gerrera's rebels set off explosives in the facility because they're trying to kill Tarkin and a number of other Imperial officers attending a summit there. And while they're stranded in a rail car, so they're in a rail car, and half the rail car is like hanging off, like it gets freed and it's hanging off, and it's holding them back. And with no other option but to basically break the rail car free, Tech, who is in the other half of the rail car, he shoots it and so that he can get his allow his friends to escape. But in the process, he dies. It's a very emotional scene, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But
That scene hurt so much.
yeah.
Especially for those of y'all that listened to our first podcast in season 1, where I said Tech is my selfish favorite character from this series.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing him go the way of the dead kind of sucked. But carry on.
And just to finish it up, the Bad Batch, they return to Ord Mantell, but unfortunately, Sid turns out to actually be just another scummy Trandoshan because she's ratted them out to Dr. Hemlock. Omega gets captured, and she's taken to Dr. Hemlock. And it turns out that Dr. Hemlock is actually a clone and a genetic sister of Omega. Cue the dramatic music. And that's how season 2 ends.
Yeah, that needed a few minutes to process for me at the end. I was like, hold up. My man Tech is dead. Omega has a sister who is the scientist holding her right now, meaning shenanigans are about to happen. Maybe still help. Maybe see. I don't know, but yeah, lot of things to process at the end here. But one thing I think I want to kind of lead into with this podcast, I I get the purpose of having the filler episodes for the Bad Batch to do shenanigans while we build up the story that Crosshair is going through. Because honestly, season 2's story is what Crosshair is going through. There's not really much else going on that matters beyond Crosshair and Dr. Hemlock. So I just kind of wish that there was more of an intersection earlier in the season with us getting, maybe getting Dr. Hemlock a little bit earlier, maybe having the hunt for Omega begin a little bit earlier, maybe have a couple of attempts where they try and kidnap her before now, and Crosshair maybe defects a bit earlier to help out. But that's just me talking as a wistful fan, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with the route they took, but the filler was a little difficult at times for me to keep up with.
Yeah. Yeah, I got some real major issues with the fillers of this season, but I'll talk with that when we get on to our overall thoughts. But let's talk about some of our favorite moments in this season, though.
So one of my favorite moments that I've realized I didn't really touch on too hard in the season 1, and I kind of briefly mentioned it at the start of this podcast. I just like how we're slowly answering that question of how did the clones get decommissioned and what happened to them between, the end of episode 3 and the start of Rebels. Like, we know that there are some clones left because you see Rex and Gregor and they're old men, but, that's because of rapid age growth. But there wasn't a real good answer for what happened to them, and this ending of season 1 with the destruction of the Kaminoan facility really answered that question for us. And I think kind of this season coming to grips with the reality of, okay, we no longer have the cloning facility, so we got to do something different. I think that's a really cool thing that this season established for us, is the aftermath of the loss of the Kaminoan facility.
Yep.
One of my favorite moments, though, honestly, the Gunzi episode where he comes back.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Because I loved Gunzi in the Clone Wars, and it's so funny to me that my I have people that I've talked to that don't even remember Gunzi ever existing in the Clone Wars. I'm just like, come on. Gunzi was the best of the little Padawans in that episode that we had with Ahsoka and Yoda helping them create their own lightsabers in Clone Wars. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And also, just the fact that we're getting Wookiee love, that to me is awesome right there. Now all we need are Ewok and Jawa Jedis, and we'll be done.
Yeah, I can't imagine a Jawa Jedi, but that would be awesome.
No, I want a Jawa Jedi, and I want Leilani Sui to be.
I knew you were going to say that. That's
to be
awesome.
the Jedi Ewok. In fact, when we're done podcasting this, I'm gonna tag her on Instagram and be like, "Hey, Lalani, can you please become an Ewok Jedi for us? Just make it happen. I don't care how you do it. Just tell Mickey Mouse you have to become a Jedi in the next incarnation they bring you back for."
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not much else I could say. That would be awesome.
And if you don't know who Leilani Stu is, listen to, I think it's episode 4 of this podcast. I interviewed her. She's the suit actor that played the Jawas in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, and is actually the first named Jawa in all of Star Wars canon. Her name
Yeah,
is Tika.
yeah, and from Obi-Wan, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry, episode 3 of our podcast. Episode 4 is our Galactic Star Cruiser with Zandri, so
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, no, definitely check it out. It was a fun little interview, and that's my shameless plug for the moment. I might have more later. We'll see.
I would probably say some of so as much as I have issues with some of the filler episodes, if I look at these filler episodes just for what they are, without like while ignoring the greater context of the whole series, so I love the episode where they go on a treasure hunt with Fee, because there's a lot of like there's a lot of cool Indiana Jones kind of references in the Fee episodes, and I'll go into more detail when we
Yeah.
get to the Easter egg section. So I love those. I really liked that two-parter with the I think it's pronounced Mako, where they have to help those workers. One of them who stole the ship. I like that episode just because it's another like uh, they had an episode like this in the Clone Wars where they kind of did this, and they're doing it here from another angle. It's kind of a not so subtle jab at like crony capitalism, I guess you could say, because like here's like this boss who has like all the food in the world, and he's just hoarding it to himself, and then like offering like table scraps to like his workers who give him all this food, and while saying that he can't afford to give them anything else, and like hiding all of it. Like, yeah, it's pretty obvious what the message is, but I like it. I mean, I think it's a great way to just kind of take a subtle jab at kind of the harsh reality that some people live in.
Ironic that this comes from Mickey Mouse's company.
I know. Maybe I kind of liked the how they did it in Clone Wars a bit better too. Just because the Clone Wars kind of hits closer to home. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, there's an episode. There's like a saga of episodes. No, I can't say which seasons because this is one of those story arcs where like one episode is in like season 3 and then another episode is in like season 2. Back when the episodes were being aired out of order, but there was a saga of episodes where Padme was trying to, bring forth like this peace deal for the Clone Wars and like in the war at a much earlier time than it actually does end. And one of the people who's actively trying to undermine that peace deal, and she ironically appears here too. I can't remember her name. Oh no, Halle Bertoni. She's a Kaminoan representative on Coruscant. She's actively trying to stop Padme from giving a peace deal, and why? Because if there's no war, then there's no need for the Republic to keep buying clones from the Kaminoans, and if the Republic isn't buying more clones from the Kaminoans, then that means they don't get their money. Like you like we talked about when we were doing our Power Rangers Cosmic Fury review, Riz, how how there's like arms dealers, like the main villains from Cosmic Fury are like arms dealers, like they have like incentives to keep this war going. So Dave Filoni has like had episodes where like he takes jabs at like the darker aspects of capitalism, and I really like the episode that he did here. And I know it's ironic because, I mean, it's made by Disney, which is not exactly the most morally high company, but
Not
it,
even close to it.
yeah, I know.
But
But Dave Filoni doing it, I mean, I'm all
n-
for it. I take my hat
me
off.
too. And also, I find it very interesting that you reference these episodes from the Clone Wars when you're talking about the capitalism, and not anything to do with the Trading Federation or the banking plan, because that's straight up capitalism right there as well.
Yeah, I know. Um, it's just those episodes kind of stuck out to me a lot
Oh
since
no,
they're yeah.
absolutely. But yeah,
Um, but yeah, though. I mean, obviously, I love the finale. We'll talk about Tech's death a little bit more when we get to his character. But Tech's death is one of my favorite. Again, not is one of the most emotional moments in like any of the Star Wars stuff. Like that's a clip that I used to watch on repeat a lot. Like, I mean, this is on par with like the scene where like Ahsoka sees Anakin in the World Between Worlds, or Count Dooku and Qui Gon's fight with Senator Dagonet and Tales of a Jedi. Like, that's just one clip that I always liked to go back to YouTube and watch a lot, just because of like how much of an impact it had on me when I first watched it.
or Kanan. Kanan's
Oh
death
yeah,
will
yeah,
always live rent free in my head.
yeah. Kanan's deaf too, absolutely. Um, and I'm just and I guess I can bring this up since he doesn't appear in that many other episodes. So enough for us to do a character thing on him. I love the episode where Cody comes back, like, and not just because it's a crosshair episode. Like that might be, if I were to do like my top 10 favorite episodes of like any Star Wars animated show, that episode would be in my um number that would be in my top 10, because I was really afraid of what they were going to do with Cody, because I don't know how many people know this, but there were some early scripts in Rebels where Cody was going to be a recurring antagonist, and he was going to have a rivalry with Rex. And in these scripts, like, he's just straight up like, long live the Empire, all hail Palpatine, blah 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 type of people. Like, he's just completely brainwashed, and he was going to be a major antagonist. And I was afraid of what they were going to do with him here, but instead, what they do with him is absolutely amazing. Like, yes, he executed Order 66, and if you watch him in Revenge of the Sith, you'll know that he did it without even questioning. Like, unlike Rex, who was actively fighting the chip until he could no longer do it when he was told to kill Ahsoka, Cody just did it without question. And people make memes on how, like, Cody was like eager to like kill Obi-Wan, but this shows he didn't want to do it, but he ultimately, like, he says good soldiers follow orders, which is the typical line that a clone says, which
Yeah.
shows that he didn't really want to kill Obi-Wan. And I like how the episode doesn't mention Obi-Wan by name, him mentioning Obi-Wan by name, because that tells me that Cody really cared about Obi-Wan and hated that he supposedly had to kill him. So he's kind of just put that in the back of his head, like he has to sleep with it at night, but he's actively trying to like just keep it in his subconscious. I love that detail. And just and to have that episode where like he thinks that like he was he's been serving the Republic, and then he sees that the Empire is not the Republic that he was built to serve, because that whole episode is where he tries to convince someone to let the Imperial officer go, and he promises a peaceful solution. But then the minute that the Imperial officer gets let go, the guy gets shot, and that's when Cody realizes, wow, this is not the Republic that I swore loyalty to. And he's questioning everything that he has ever done. Like, I can't, like, I couldn't have thought of a more perfect way to portray Cody like that. Like, that episode alone makes this season worth watching, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, 100% agree with everything you just said. And yeah, Cody doesn't get a lot of love from fans, myself included, as much as he probably should get in retrospect. And that's kind of sad.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that he doesn't come back in a later episode, although I'm hoping that he's in season 3, but
We'll find out next week. Or, well, I'll find out tomorrow because I'm going to binge the crap out of this.
yeah. Well, I mean,
For,
this
for the
still,
record, I think episode 10 drops tonight of season 3.
yeah, but the season still has like a month left.
Oh, I know.
So,
That's what I'm saying. At least we'll get some inkling,
yeah.
in the next couple of days. It may be another month before we know for certain, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just, I was really curious how they were going to portray him, and I I wouldn't have minded if they just went the original Rebels route of having him just be a completely brainwashed person, like me Stormtrooper, me love Emperor, all long live the Empire, blah 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 blah. But because that would have made it all the more sad and kind of tragic. But
Yeah.
no, instead to have him be like someone who obeyed the order because he thought it was for the greater good, only to discover that the greater good that he thought he was fighting for doesn't exist, and then kind of living with the guilt that he carried out that order, this is deep psychological stuff that you wouldn't expect to see in a Star Wars cartoon.
Yeah. No, it's not. And it's really awesome that we can get this kind of stuff in there.
Yeah. And I just wanted to bring that up, the whole thing, because Cody's only in one episode. I could talk about the crosshair element in this episode when we start talking about crosshair, but I just wanted to give that one. I thought that episode in Cody can qualify as a favorite moment since Cody himself only appears in one episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. But I have another favorite moment that I want to kind of highlight. Kind of want to highlight, while I hate it with a burning passion and I want to see her get bodily harm done to her, Sid's betrayal at the end is so perfect.
Yeah.
Because she's a Trandoshan, and we just spent the last podcast talking about how Trandoshans are normally portrayed as scummy, and she does a pretty convincing job of keeping us on the string, thinking, well, she is kind of scummy, but she's also been very helpful to our friends. But we get this sad reminder at the end that not everyone who acts like your friend is actually your friend. And I mean, this is kind of shown a couple of times, because when they lose their sip, they try and ask her to come help, and she says, "Nah, figure it out yourselves. You got this."
Yeah.
And that was my first hint of, man, this chick sucks.
And then she stabs him in the back, and Omega is in custody of the Empire because of her.
Yep. And now we have many new questions that we got to answer in season 3.
Yeah. Do we want to start talking about the characters again?
Yes, sirree. Let's do it.
All right, let's start off with Hunter.
Hunter is the easiest one for me, I think, to talk about. He has the same character traits as last season. He's developed him a little bit more in terms of like the familial part of it with Omega and the clan as a whole. To me, he still has that same gaping hole, though, where he's not really given a lot of good opportunity to showcase his enhanced clone ability. But other than that, he's still a very solid character to me. What do you think?
Yeah, he was still pretty cool here. I mean, he's still just the great leader, and he still has some great moments with Omega, and
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much else I can say with him. He's just still a great character.
I mean, the best moment for Hunter is probably at the end when they're all discussing staying on Pabu long term and him grappling with the idea of leaving the life of a soldier behind and putting down roots finally. Because that's a discussion he's having before the Crosshair mission begins. And it's a decision that they're making in the, you know, aftermath of Echo being, not Echo, Tech being killed.
Yep.
So, no, that's an easy one, and I have no other real comments on Hunter that I can really give. So, I guess on to Wrecker.
I mean, Wrecker is still just Wrecker, and he's still just an awesome character.
Yeah, nothing to say beyond what we said in the first podcast, because he's still literally the same lovable goof that we've just, yeah.
I will say though that the big moment that I think, like I know it's just one line, but I could feel the emotion behind it, and this is part of the reason why Tech's death is so big. So I didn't mention this when I was giving the recap, but while the Tech is hanging from the rail car, Wrecker is trying to like hold the thing, like he's hanging on for dear life to make sure that Tech doesn't get killed. And Tech is saying, "Okay, I'm going to shoot it, and I'm going to sacrifice myself so you can go free." And Wrecker is always, "No, no, no, Tech, no! Don't you dare do it, no!" And then when Tech does it, like he just screams no, and it's like, and I can feel the emotion like going through his voice, because like think about it, like Tech is his brother, and he has to now live the rest of his life knowing that he wasn't strong enough to keep his brother safe, and I could feel all that emotion in his
Oh my
voice.
god, yeah, that's so true. Like, the emotion in that scene, and we're going to talk about that scene a bit more when we get to Tech, but no, absolutely 100%. That that was painfully seared into my core memory.
Yeah, it. Yeah, like I mean, Tech sacrifice alone is great in that scene, but yeah, I don't like. You kind of need to talk a little bit about how it impacts Wrecker too, because now he has to live with the fact that as strong as he was still not strong enough to keep his brother safe,
Yeah.
and that that would emotionally wreck anybody. And I feel bad for everyone for losing their brother, but Wrecker in particular.
Yeah, no, I think this goes back to what I was talking about in our season 1 podcast review, where I harped on that line that he had with Crosshair, where he said, if you had made the attempt to come back to us, we would have taken you back. No questions asked. It just shows that underneath all the gruff and buff that is Wrecker, he truly has the heart of gold. And honestly, he might be the glue holding these guys together.
Yeah,
Because he just loves so deeply and he's so loyal.
yeah, it's I don't
And
know. I Part of me feels like I want to cry just thinking about what he's going through now.
and also, when Tech says Plan 99 and Wrecker has that sudden realization of, this is it. He declared Plan 99, whatever Plan 99 actually ended up being. I don't know if it means Tech sacrificed herself, or does it mean one of the members of the squad sacrificed herself. I don't know how specific the plan actually is, but when he invoked Plan 99, you could feel the pain emanating out of Wrecker more than you could from Echo and from Hunter, because they're not the focus of that moment.
Yeah,
So, yeah, no, that entire moment's really emotionally charged because of how deeply Wrecker can love as a person.
yep. And that's why I mean he's probably that moment alone just makes me probably rank him above Hunter for this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, do we? So yeah, let's talk about Echo now.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and start this one off? Because I have some thoughts that I want to hear how you play it off of before I give mine.
Yeah. So I was watching so I initially thought that like Echo was a bit better this season, and I do think he is still, but maybe I might have overestimated a little bit because I was watching some recaps of it, just thinking about kind of what he did and recaps of his season just to get it kind of fresh in my mind. And I think I guess Echo like leaving the team to help Rex and rescuing clones, that's a cool thing that matches like what he's done because unlike the Bad Batch, like Echo has actually fought on the front lines with like fellow clones, and some of those might even be some of his brothers from the 501st.
Yeah.
So I guess I liked that moment, but the problem is we don't really see him doing much of that aside from like this one moment where like he and Rex rescue Hauser and some other clone troopers. I wish that they like once again we get an opportunity to expand on it, which okay, that's more than we there that's more than like what they did in season 1. So I feel like he inches just a little bit ahead, but yeah, he still continues. And now with what we're going to be saying about Tech and Crosshair, I think we can officially say that he's the weakest character in the show. Like,
I mean, do you remember I texted you, I think maybe yesterday or day before, and I was like, dude, I don't understand your comment in the podcast because I don't see Echo evolving in the way that you're saying he's going to evolve.
yeah,
Because
I think that was more
I didn't see
suckered in
it.
from the style as opposed to the substance in that case.
Yeah, because to me, it's a cool moment when he leaves to go with Rex, but it's one moment. And I mean, I know he's not in like, he may not be in like 3 or 4 episodes, not counting the crosshair stuff, but he is in a majority of the episodes for the season, and he's still very stagnant, in my opinion,
Yeah.
as a character, in terms of development, in terms of story, in terms of everything. Like, there's nothing that changes about him, there's nothing more about him that we get. I mean, okay, you can kind of make the argument that he has a slight bit of development because of Omega. And the moment I'm referencing, I don't know if you'll remember this or not, but when he comes to Pabu to have them decrypt the data that leads them to the Crosshair mission, when he's basically parking his ship, he is joking with Omega and saying, "I'll race you." And that's the first time I see Echo really give any emotion outside of like loyalty. Like he's actually having frivolous fun for the sake of having fun.
Yeah.
And that's the only time he's ever really done that. Up until now. I mean, season 3, who knows what's going to happen, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. I Yeah, he's just kind of a huge disappointment here. Like I mentioned this when we recorded the season 1 podcast, before, but it wasn't in the last recording. Like this is like the equivalent of, to kind of bring up material from our other podcasts. Like imagine if you still have Tommy and Dino Thunder,
Yeah.
but he's not really a mentor, and rarely, if ever, do they acknowledge his past as a Power Ranger. He's just there to be a body to fill the Abar black suit for the Abar Ranger footage when they film Power Rangers Dino Thunder.
Yeah.
Like that's doing a complete disservice to a character who was absolutely awesome. And that's exactly what they're doing with Echo.
Well, the same thing is kind of true with the Vader Anakin character. If it wasn't for like the novels that surround, you know, everything after the Clone Wars ended, Vader went from being this really badass character, Anakin, to just being this monolith of evil. And it's not until you start reading these books like the Thrawn novels that I've read, and I think you mentioned a lot of cool stuff with Vader in, was it Dark Disciples you said, or was it something else?
Um,
I forget the name of the book you told me now.
it's like, I mean, Vader. There's some kind of cool stuff in Lords of the Sith, but
There you
not
go.
too much.
But
Like,
the,
yeah.
but the point is, like, Vader in the original trilogy, kind of dull and not really that interesting. But he's only made interesting again because of Rebels a little bit, but more so because of the books, in my opinion. And then obviously when we see him again in the Ahsoka TV show as Anakin, as a Force Ghost or whatever, that's also peak Anakin. But in the middle, his character kind of goes down, and that's kind of where I'm seeing Echo right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dip in quality in the story writing of the character because, you know, Anakin had a great deal to him. I mean, he was, in my opinion, one of the most complex characters in the franchise, to me at least. Um, and then he gets simplified down to the original trilogy. I know the original trilogy came first. They didn't really have the entire Anakin Skywalker plan written back in the 1980s, but still, looking at it chronologically from a historical point of view in canon, it is a bit weird. And yeah, same thing is true for Echo here, is that he started off with his really awesome backstory, and now he's just kind of there to serve a purpose of being a suit.
Mm-hmm.
Not really a suit, but a clone in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, totally.
And his capabilities were replicated by Tech, but Tech is gone now, so Echo has to be Tech.
Yeah, I hope they do some better stuff with Echo in the next season.
Yeah. But do we want to move on to Omega, or do we want to move on to Tech now?
Let's do Omega first, just because
Okay.
Tech is a bit. We're taking a huge leap with Tech,
Yeah.
so.
So Omega is still okay. So I can't say it's still very much on the same path. So she is on that same path with family to me, but that path has gone down a very dark path that I didn't expect. Um, because in the first season, she's very happy-go-lucky, happy to have her clone family with her. But then when Echo leaves to go with Rex, she gets very depressive for a little while, yelling at Tech, getting mad at everyone, and just letting out all the angst of, realizing this family is not as firm of a foundation that they are, there's a possibility that they could die. And you see this with Echo departing. You also see this when they lose the SIP one episode later. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's just in a really bad place for a while. And I feel for that because if you look at her history, she's basically a more emotive clone than the others, in that she yearns for her family more than the other clones do. Because the other clones are conditioned to be soldiers, but Omega's not really given that conditioning, and she also doesn't age rapidly like the rest of them. So she's going through the pangs of childhood in a lot more detail than the other clones did, so they don't understand what she's going through because they didn't go through it. And that just leads to a very interesting dynamic between her and Tech, namely, but also to lesser degrees with her and the rest of the Bad Bats. Um, and yeah, I mean, Omega just grew a lot, but not in the ways that I was expecting. I expected her to grow, but not in this darker way.
Yeah, I think you've summed up everything I have to say with Omega. Like, I don't know, like you. it's always funny how people like I remember when Ahsoka was coming out, and like a lot of people were saying I don't understand who these characters are, and it's all like, well, that's why you should watch Rebels, and it's like, but it's cartoons, it's for kids, and like you just think you should probably watch some episodes of Bad Batch and some Clone Wars episodes, because if you think that these shows are just for kids, oh boy, are you in for a rude awakening.
Ooh, man, you are not gonna have a good time the next day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, definitely, yeah. Um, but yeah, that's all I had to say on Omega. Do you want to add anything at all?
No, like I said, you pretty much summed up everything for Omega.
Okay,
Uh, Other than just, I love how like it's not as powerful as Wrecker, but I like how like how like her reaction to Tech's death, where like she's trying to like go after him, and like Hunter's holding her back, and she's like saying, "No, no, 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 we got to turn back, we got to turn back." Like
yeah,
her reaction also just makes that moment, just a really emotional moment.
yeah, definitely. And on the flip side, to talk about some of her lighter moments, I loved Omega living on Pabu a lot. Like, that was my. If we could have ended the Bad Batch on a happy note, it would have been the entire squad taking up roots and living on Pabu, because Omega seemed so happy and Wrecker seemed so happy to be there. Like, going back to Wrecker for a minute, because this is actually a very important moment that I kind of forgot about until right now. But Wrecker on Pabu is quite possibly another moment of showcasing his empathy and his love of life, because unlike the others, Wrecker fit in right away with the Pabu civilization. He's helping them with the chores, he's helping build stuff, he's helping with cleanup after the storm, and he's just so happy to be there, while Tech and Hunter are more apprehensive on, well, we're soldiers, we can't put down roots here forever, what are we doing? But yeah, Omega having that happy moment of finally having a little bit of normalcy as a child should. We haven't really seen that since Cut and, is her name Sue? Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Like back in like episode 2 of season 1. We haven't seen that side of her in this way since then, I don't think.
No, I don't think we have.
So, it's a nice moment for both of them. And with that, I have nothing else to add for either character, and I'm ready to move on to Crosshair, because he's a little bit more easy to unpack for me right now.
Yeah. Um.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is where I can kind of, really, uh, like kind of unload how just how great of just how great of a character Crosshair is, because you know um like so I like to think that so part of the reason why Crosshair probably chose the Empire is because you know so there's one huge difference between Crosshair and the other Bad Batch members. And it's funny how you constantly mention how the other three are able to consider like the idea of like leaving the the life of a soldier behind and doing other things. Well, they're kind of privileged to where they can do that. Like Hunter can use his hunting skills to like genuinely hunt and like track stuff. Doesn't necessarily need to be used for combat. I mean, Wrecker is a super strong guy, so he can help people with like just like manual labor. Tech can help people, like both Tech and Echo can help people with you know like tech related work. Not so much with Crosshair. Like he was born to like just like his skills basically allow him to like shoot people more effectively. How is he going to be able to use that ability in anything else other than war? So he legitimately had. So of course he's going to want to. He has no choice but to continue working for the Empire. And I I love how, the two episodes that revolve around him are just perfect because, like, he, like many other clones, swore his loyalty to the Empire. And at first you think, okay, this guy is probably evil, but that episode, so I've already talked about the Cody episode, and I like that episode more for the Cody stuff, but that episode where he goes out on this mission with Mayday and he like drags his brother through the snow just because he's his brother. Like, there's not much dialogue in there, but you can just kind of see all the stuff going through his head, just thinking, wow, I swore my loyalty to this empire, and here they are treating me and my brothers like we're just like disposable trash. And to see like the arc that he goes through, even if it's just a handful of episodes, you know, like just him questioning everything he's fighting for is just kind of insane. And I'm really curious to see where they're going to go with him in season 3, because like I said, like what he might, unlike the other clones, there's not much that he can offer outside of war. So is he going to go on to be like a rebel soldier, or is he going to, you know, like what is he going to do? Like he is at a huge moment of uncertainty in his life, especially now,
Yeah,
but he can't stay with the Empire because they don't care about him, and he's disgusted how they treat him and his brothers. So yeah,
it's
I'm really curious to
interesting.
see where he's gonna go.
It's interesting you frame it in that way, Nate, because you're right. Hunter and Wrecker can easily retool their enhanced skill for civilian life. Tech could have, to a lesser degree, done the same, but not so much. Um, Echo couldn't have done it, I don't think. Like Echo's is too ingrained in the military life, and he's literally half android, robot, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, those three would definitely have had a hard time, but Crosshair especially because, like Echo, he was ingrained with the soldier life, but in a different way. Like Crosshair had loyalty to the Republic over anything else. Echo had loyalty to his squad over anything else. And that's the dividing difference between the two of them. And what makes me think while Echo would struggle with civilian life, he would still make it work because at the end of the day, even if he can't do soldier stuff anymore, he's still with his family. But Crosshair valued his connection to the higher up powers that be. And he had a bit of ambition. We talked about that before in season 1, that I thought Crosshair had some ambition of promotion or eventual leadership or something, and that was why he pursued what he did and the way he did.
yeah,
So, yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to add on for Crosshair, but I don't think so. I think you summed it up pretty well, and I had a nice little whipped cream on top for you.
yeah, totally.
Okay, I think we've done enough stalling on this one.
Yeah, we have to talk to the man, the myth, the legend himself now, Tech.
The goat.
Yep. And
So,
he's your favorite, so you should be allowed to talk about him first.
yeah, so it wasn't until Fee came along that I started to see a slight shift in the dynamic of Tech in the group. And it wasn't even a big shift when Fee came along. And it was honestly probably more one sided in my opinion. But you could kind of tell from the beginning that Fee had eyes for Tech in a way that was not a, hey, you're a useful soldier that can help me do my crazy alien mythological, archaeological, whatever paranormal hunting thing that we're going to do. Because we are going to talk about Fee after this, Nate, because I have questions about that damn episode. But
Yeah.
um, the it kind of began there with him kind of being given someone who cared about him that was not his clone family. And he didn't really register it. He was kind of oblivious to it. And I kind of chalked it up to, okay, he's too ingrained in his intellect and his military training to really even acknowledge anyone in that way. But then the Omega Tantrum happens. Wow, that sounds pretty cool. Omega Tantrum. If you don't think about the actual character Omega, that's a cool name or
Yeah,
cool
totally.
phrase. Um, but yeah, so Omega's having her tantrum, and she takes it out on Tech, and Tech responds saying, "Yo, it did hurt me when Echo left, but we have to move forward for the betterment of our team. But don't get me wrong, I am upset about it. I just can't express it in the way that you do." And that really got me. Like, I don't know about you, but that really got me.
Oh yeah, 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 100%.
Like, I don't know. If I were to kind of speculate a little bit, Nate, I might I might say that Tech is a little bit on the spectrum, and he struggles with that social interaction a little bit more because of it.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking that a little bit too. Like I don't know. Like I tend to, and I was kind of iffy on whether or not I wanted to say that because I've been a little like lately. I've kind of looked at people with like some odd behaviors who like are not publicly on the spectrum, but I still kind of speculate that they might be
Yeah,
like there's like for example to give like a non thing like there's this one football coach for who I'm not going to mention him by name. I don't want to mention that, but like he's someone who has like a real like y- who has memorized like every single play that he's ever called during every game of his career. And
good
it's like,
lord.
yeah, there's no way that somebody could have that type of memory without being on the spectrum.
Yeah,
So and I've done that with like other people based on their behaviors, and Tech definitely gives me those vibes. Now granted, this is the Star Wars universe, so there would probably have to be like an alternate way to say it, but
yeah,
whatever the Star Wars equivalent is of the spectrum, I get the idea that he's on it.
yeah. And I mean, to your point about your football coach that memorized everything, look at the episode with the race. I kind of want to call it the pod racing, but I know it's not. The battle pod racing, I guess, is a better term for it.
Yeah.
Like this this dude literally did all the calculations on every possible way to look at his different opponents on the track and know exactly how much power to exert when and when to do certain maneuvers. And he wasn't going off of reflex, he was going off of data. And I'm sorry, but I don't think anyone that's not on the spectrum could hold that much information and process it in the way that he did.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like, it's just not a thing you can do. So, yeah, that little events like that, like the racing episode, the episode with Omega, really made me start to wonder about Tech and more of his personality and why does he have the certain tendencies that he does have. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then we get to the big moment when he has to self sacrifice himself for the betterment of the squad. And man, that moment, I kind of saw it coming, but not really. So the episode prior to his death, Fee comes up to talk to him, and she's trying her level best to hint at him, hey, you have a place here whenever you want with me. Like, not in a friendship way. Like, this is like full on, I
Yeah.
am in love with you, but you're too on the spectrum to realize it.
Yeah, that's there's literally no other way to put it. Yeah.
So, no, he, like, just seeing that moment, I'm like, okay, we have this trope that whenever the girl tells the guy that he has a place at home, and it's kind of left in that kind of way, the guy may not make it back. And I was kind of hoping I was wrong. And one of the Facebook groups I'm in, or maybe it was on Reddit, I don't know where I saw it,
Yeah.
but somewhere I saw a brief comment that I scrolled past as quick as I could that mentioned Tech's body, and I thought this is a season 3 spoiler, but turns out it's a season 2 spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so on that note, and to the comment that they made on that forum or whatever it was on, we don't actually see a body at the end. We see the goggles, we see him fall to his doom, but we're in the Star Wars universe. Darth Maul came back how many times after being cut in half? Maybe Tech comes back too at some point next season. Who knows? But yeah, no, that moment, like I think we've done it justice already when we talk about Omega and Record's impression of when he died. But that moment is just top tier emotional Star Wars franchise moments for me.
And if you want to see like how emotional like his moment, like his death is, like his final line, like good God, like, and for and I'll say it like so like the V wings are closing in on them, and like I said, Wrecker's like, nope, don't you do it, Tech, don't you dare do it, and Tech says, quote, when have we ever followed orders? And then he shoots the thing. Like, Jesus.
Nate, that still hurts 1 day later.
Yeah.
Right in the feels. Yeah, no,
And the way
definitely.
and the way he's falling too, like there's just a way of how he's dying. Like you would, like any normal person after like they shoot something that's holding them holding them up and like dying, like you would think he's falling to his death and he's going to be like screaming, but no, he's not screaming because he did this heroically. He gets like one last look at his brothers, knowing that he saved their lives before he died. Like that. Do I even have to say why that's just so powerful?
I mean, I know why, but you can still say it if you want to. We're on a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, it should just go without saying. Like, just watch that clip and you'll see how amazing it is.
Yeah, it truly is. It's honestly rivaling the Kanan death scene for me right now. And I don't know if that's because I just watched it last night or because it's truly that emotionally charged, but it's really that high up there.
And that might be the I'm starting to think that might be the saddest clone. Okay, so before this, I would say, and to kind of get one of my Easter eggs out of the way, I think that the Plan 99 that they bring up is a reference to a clone named 99. He was a like an old and decrepit, like deformed clone who was
Oh
working as like a
no.
caretaker on Camino, and he never got to fight. And then during season 3, when Camino was invaded, he died, but he got to go out the way that he wanted to, where he was going to like get some grenades so that Cody and Rex could use them, and then he got shot. But he died defending he died fighting as a soldier, defending his home. So it's a poetic way to die. And that was the saddest clone death. And I don't know if I could call Tech's death better than it, but it's definitely on par. Now, and one of the reasons why I still call 99's death one of the saddest is because of his last line. Like, because he says, oh, okay, I'll go get some more grenades. And then Cody and Rex are like, no, 99, it's too dangerous. And then 99's line is, no, I'm a soldier like you, damn it. And then he dies as a soldier. Like, so yeah, he and Tech's deaths. I mean, Five's death is sad, but Tech and 99's deaths, like, if anybody, anytime somebody tells you that the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars are just shows meant for kids, you show them 99's death and you show them Tech's death and tell them to say that to you again. They're not going to be able to say it.
You know, your interpretation and your thoughts on Plan 99 trump what I got out of it the first time I heard it. I thought it was a reference to Order 66, but it's a reverse order. Instead of killing the Jedi, you're killing yourselves for the betterment of everyone else.
I mean, that's also a possibility. I mean,
That's where I went, but you just played with my heart, man. I mean, holy crap. I honestly forgot about 99's death until right now. I
yeah,
need
I
to
mean,
watch the Clone Wars soon.
to be fair, I briefly forgot about it too, but then like last year when I was in Alabama visiting one of my childhood friends, we were out doing some stuff and we were talking about the Clone Wars because he's watched the Clone Wars too, and he asked me whose death I think is the saddest, and I said Fives because he hadn't seen the Bad Batch, so we wouldn't have known about Tech's death, but.
Hmm.
And then he said, "No, it's 99," and he explained how 99 died, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was a pretty emotional moment, actually. I can't believe I didn't say that was the greatest, the
No,
saddest moment
that's
in Star Wars."
really that's valid, and now that you said it, I have to agree with your friend.
Yeah. And by the way, that's the friend that you might meet this year for a
I
random
know.
spot, but that's beside the point. But yeah, but yeah, so Tech's death is definitely on par with 99's death, but I am not going to say which one is better than the other because that's just gonna result in this huge debate going on in my head, and all I'm gonna end up with is a splitting headache at the end of the day with no answer.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Tech's death is still one of the most emotional moments in a Star Wars animated show. And if anybody ever says that this is a kid show again, I will take this clip and shove it down your throat and tell you and then ask you to tell me that again. And you're not going to be able to say it.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're done with the depressing part.
Yeah.
Um, I can summarize Sid in like one word: scumbag.
Yep, she finally decided to live up to her reputation as a Trandoshan.
Yeah. Which brings me to what I promised that we talked about earlier with Fee. What the heck was that episode?
Which
The
one are you talking about?
the hunt where they go off and they find the duel in the robot and they have like this mech battle type thing, and I'm just sitting here like, what the hell is this thing? What is this referencing to in the Star Wars universe? Like, I don't understand the
I
gem.
kind
I
of
don't
feel
understand the
like
big
that was
robot.
meant more. That just felt more like
Good.
um I don't know, like that whole episode just seemed
Hello.
more like a love letter to the to like the Indiana Jones movies, just because there was a new Indiana Jones movie getting ready to come out around this time. So, and
Oh,
I'll
do you
talk
think it's
about
just, so
what's
you
up.
think it's like an Indiana Jones reference, not like anything deeper than that, like
I
mystical powers are related back to the father, the son, and the mother, and all that?
That's what I got out of it. Like I don't know that episode. I mean, honestly, I don't remember aside from the Indiana Jones stuff. I don't remember much from that episode. It I don't that, and I'll talk more about like how that is with when we talk about the fillers. But yeah, that episode didn't really leave much of an impact on me, which it kind of says how it's not exactly a great episode.
Yeah. But that episode also did a pretty good job of showcasing Fee and her eccentric lifestyle that she lives.
Yeah,
Like, Homegirl just goes from one myth to the next, debunking or finding it and capturing the artifact from it. And I
and
think that's a really cool life.
she's voiced by the perfect woman to voice like a sassy black woman like her, Wanda Sykes, who's voiced like God knows how many sassy black women in animated stuff. Like,
Yeah.
um, so before we get into overall thoughts, you want to just talk? You want me to list off some of the Easter eggs here real quick?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. Um, so like I said, opening episode, we have the Bad Batch infiltrating Castle Sereno. It's the former home of Count Dooku. We saw it very frequently in the 2008 Clone Wars series. The Class 4 container transport freighters that were used to take away Dooku's chests, they were this type of ship first appeared in Star Wars Rebels. And I actually I kind of remember, I think, the Ghost crew had to infiltrate one of those ships. I remember at least one episode where they did that, so that's pretty cool. During Cody and Crosshair's mission, where they are battling separatist remnants, one of the clones asks how they got around the shutdown order that entered the war. This is a reference to an order that Palpatine is seen giving Anakin to send following his assassination of the entire Separatist Council. He says it in Revenge of the Sith. Anakin sends that order off screen, but we know he sent it. Tani Amis, he is the Separatist governor in this episode. He claims to have previously worked on a peace treaty with Senator Mina Bonteri. Bonteri appeared in several episodes of the Clone Wars, and she was seen working with Padme on forming a peace treaty. Cody and Crosshair's final conversation before Cody disappears takes place at the first battle memorial. It is a giant slab of Geonosian rock honoring the many clones who died in the first battle of Geonosis. That memorial first appeared in season 5 of the Clone Wars. Crosshair, following Cody's desertion, Crosshair is assigned to CC 1226. This clone destination was given to a minor clone in Legends, but it's probably just a coincidence and it's not the same character. Hunter and Echo in one episode are said to be on a mission for Sid delivering Nerf nuggets. This type of food was first established in a canon novel, which I actually reviewed on the Jedi Squadron podcast. By the way, Hair to the Jedi. So here is the beginning of some of the Indiana Jones references. So during the treasure hunt episode, Hunter has to walk over very specific stones to avoid falling to his death. That is a direct reference to the Word of God challenge that Indy faces in the Last Crusade while he's, trying to get the Holy Grail. Hunter accuses Fee of, quote, making up this adventure as she goes. That's a direct reference to a line that Indy says in Raiders of the Lost Ark. The scene of Fee retrieving the heart of the mountain, where it cuts between her and Omega, is edited almost exactly the same way to the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where we see where it's like cutting between Indy and Satipo as he tries to retrieve that golden idol at the beginning of the first movie. Everybody knows that scene where like Indy like takes that golden idol and then like puts a bag of sand on where it should be. And the Bad Batch and Fee coming out of their adventure with no treasure. That's pretty much in the spirit of Indiana Jones, because if you've watched any of the Indiana Jones movies, you'll know that he never comes out of his adventures with the treasure that he sought. Fee mentions that she's wanting to go after an ancient chalice, which could be referring to the Star Wars version of the Holy Grail, which is one of the artifacts that Indiana Jones famously pursued. So yeah, a lot of Indiana Jones references, which I love. I'm a huge fan of the Indiana Jones movies. As Riz mentioned, Gunji appears here. He originally appeared in the Youngling arc in season 5 of the Clone Wars. In that episode, Wrecker mentions not having been to Kashyyyk in a while. This is referring to an unfinished Clone Wars arc where the Bad Batch would be fighting side by side with the Wookiees, and a lot of elements in this episode are elements from that arc. They encounter insectoid creatures called the Kinraths. They were supposed to appear in the aforementioned story arc, and they were actually originally these appeared in the Knights of the Old Republic video games as enemies that you fight on Kashyyyk and Dantooine. And as someone who had his fair share of trouble beating some of these enemies in those games, I can tell you those things are a pretty pesky are a bunch of pretty pesky creatures. Glad they don't exist in real life.
One could say they bugged you.
I thought you were going to be done with the bad puns, dude.
It's okay to make one every now and then.
Okay, totally. The leader of the Trandoshan Ravagers, Venomar, he was supposed to be a villain for that arc. And that large ape-like creatures of Kashyyyk, they were supposed to appear in that story arc. We see the Clone Bar 79s that originally appeared in a Clone Wars episode. It's a bar where, a lot of the clones like to hang out at. We have yet another character appearing, being voiced by someone who played her physically. One of the senators that argues against Rampart's bill is Senator Tenra Pano of Terrace. She originally appeared in live action in Rogue One as part of the High Command of the Rebellion, and she is voiced by the same actress who played her in that movie, Sharon Duncan Brewster. Pantoran Senator Ryu Chuchi, she also returns here. She was in the Clone Wars originally. The clone assassin that tries to kill her actually kills himself with an electric tooth trick, which originally appeared in The Mandalorian. The Bad Batch sneak into an Imperial shipyard underground where they travel through a power generator. That location originally appeared in the Clone Wars. Moko, the alien boss, appear in that anti-capitalist episode. He is actually the first of his alien species to appear. It has been confirmed that his species has not appeared in anything, and it's not officially been named yet. So that's another species other than Yoda's species that hasn't been given a name yet. By the way, can they just give Yoda's species a name already? Damn it. Mount Tantus. This is where the cloning facility is. It originally appeared in canon in season 1 of the Bad Batch, but it was originally created for Timothy Zahn's original Thrawn trilogy. So not the Thrawn books in canon, the original Thrawn trilogy that I spoke about. And oddly enough, in that trilogy too, it served as part of an Imperial cloning projects. Dr. Carr is voiced by Keisha Castle Hughes. She originally appeared as Queen Apailana. She is the current Queen of Naboo who attends Padme's funeral at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Okay, and here's some more Indiana Jones references. The scene featuring Fee buying an artifact by a gangster who then tries to poison her is a direct reference to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where in the opening scene, Indiana Jones suffers a similar experience. Speaking of the poisoning, the creature that nearly poisons Fee is a Cahoon. This type of creature originally appeared in Attack of the Clones as the creatures that nearly poisoned Padme. Here is a reference that I honestly had to pause the episode because it was honestly hilarious. The building that Fee has this encounter with this person at, it's called Club Lao She. Now it's written in Orabesh, but the name Lao She is the name of the gangster who tries to poison Indiana Jones at the beginning of that movie. And the reason why this is so hilarious is because at the beginning of the Temple of Doom, the club where Indiana Jones almost gets poisoned at is called Club Obi-Wan. So I just love how they're kind of just mixing it up a little bit.
I like how it took 40 years to have it come full circle.
Yeah, but better late than never.
Yeah, definitely.
We got a little bit of Lord of the Rings inspiration, or at least that's what I got, because Fee's home city appears to be somewhat inspired by Minas Tirith. That's the capital of Gondor, because it's a city of many levels, and at the top of the building there's a visible tree in the courtyard, so that's pretty cool. One of the clones on Echo's strike team is named Fireball. A clone in the Legends novel Gambit also had this name. Maybe it's the same person. The planet Echo rescues Hauser from is Balmora. It makes its canon debut here, but it originally appeared in the Dark Empire comics and Legends. This features the first on-screen appearance of Eriadu, the homeworld of Tarkin. It's appeared in many novels and comics, but this is the first time that it appears on screen. We have a lot of familiar faces that at the summit that Tarkin attends. We have Barton Coburn. He originally appeared in the Clone Wars as an officer in the Navy. He was working alongside Plo Koon. Hurst Romati. He originally appeared as one of the non-speaking people in the conference room in A New Hope, and he was also in Rogue One. We have Orson Krennic. He originally appeared in Rogue One, and in keeping with the continuity of that film, he updates Tarkin on Project Stardust, which, as established in Rogue One, is the code name of the Death Star. Now, apparently, early drafts of the script were going to have General Taggy and Admiral Mahdi. These are the two officers during that conference room. During the conference room scene in A New Hope, there's one officer that's saying, "Hey, we got to do something because the rebels could destroy the Death Star." That's General Taggy, and then Admiral Mahdi. He's the one who's all like, "Rebels can't do anything," and then he gets choked by Vader. That's Admiral Mahdi. Those two officers were supposed to appear here, but they got cut out because they thought that around this time in the timeline, they would be too early on in their Imperial careers as officers to be attending such a summit. And finally, during the raid, an Imperial officer detects a malfunction in sensor 3811. And if you've watched Riz and Mai's reviews on the original trilogy, you will know that this is yet another reference to George Lucas's original film THX 1138, except they have the numbers mixed up. And yeah, that's it for the Easter eggs and references. So now we can go into our overall thoughts. And Riz, I just spoke for quite a bit, so you can start off with that.
Overall thoughts. I liked season 2 a lot because it had a lot of fun moments, even if I had my reservations about the overall direction that we're taking with this series as a whole. I love the growth we got for Crosshair, Tech, basically everyone except for poor Echo. Echo, please redeem yourself next season. You have one more chance before it ends. Yeah, I just think this was a season that had a lot more potential that could have been reached, but it couldn't reach it because of that damn number of filler episodes we got. Which, again, I didn't mind watching the filler episodes, but definitely it was disjointed and didn't provide a cohesive end goal that we kind of be expecting to kind of reach at some point. Because when we did the Star Wars Rebels review series on here, each season of Rebels had, at least in my opinion, an underlining goal of where we're going to end. It might have been ending with the Ghost team beating Ahsoka. It might have been ending with, Rogue One, basically. There's a lot of different there are different like end goals that we had by the end of the season, and things were leading up to it. But in this case, yeah, we're leading up to the clones getting decommissioned, but there's so much mystery surrounding Omega still, and we've really not even scratched the surface of it yet. Like, is the end goal of Bad Batch to give us the story of Omega and why she's important to the franchise? And if she is, then what else will she do after the season ends after season 3? I mean, she doesn't appear again, as far as I can tell, in anything else like in the Mandoverse and the sequel trilogy, the original trilogy. So I'm just kind of curious on the point of all this beyond just having a fun time with some amazing characters, because like I said, some of these Bad Batch characters are some of my favorite in the franchise. But yeah, those are my thoughts, Nate. I know you wanted to talk about the fillers as well, so I'll let you have your moment.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I want to say that I like this as much as season one. I desperately want to, because the good stuff in this season is even better than the good stuff from season one. But I just can't bring myself to say that this is better than season one, because here's the problem. Like, so first of all of the great mind blowing stuff, with the exception of the finale and like Tech's death, which is at the end, like all of the good stuff are just the episodes revolving around Crosshair, and that's kind of a problem, because is this series called Crosshair? No, it's called The Bad Batch, and it's kind of bad when the most memorable episodes outside of the finale revolve around one character, while the filler episodes revolving around the Bad Batch, they're fun, but they're kind of mindless fun. And that really bothers me, because here's the thing. I don't have any problem with these filler episodes, like, just like if you just take them out of context. Like that treasure hunting episode, it's a fun little Indiana Jones joyride. And like I said, I kind of liked that episode where they help those, people who, are being oppressed by their boss. I like that episode for very, selfish reasons. And I guess like the multi-part episode where they have to expose Rampart was fun enough, but like after everything that was built up with season one of like, you know, them establishing like this is the transition between the Galactic Republic and the Galactic Empire, and how the clones, what the clones' place is in this. I just wish that all of these filler episodes would have something that revolved around that. Like, okay, you could keep the treasure hunt episode, and you could keep the, I don't know, I like the Gunji episode, so you could keep the Gunji episode, and you could even keep that episode where they the whole like helping the greedy boss. But in all these other, like, do we really need an episode where they try to help Fee evacuate the people of her home city before it's hit by a tsunami, or you know all those, like, couldn't we get episodes that feel more in tune with like this being the you know a world where clones are about to be dissolved? Like, can't we get an episode where like maybe they encounter some clones that are kind of what Cody was originally intended to be in Rebels, like clones that are just completely brainwashed, and they know that they're about to be phased out, but they don't care because long live the Empire. Because then that would show like a great, like, counter to what, Crosshair's whole story arc. And that would be a cool way to like, give interesting episodes with the actual Bad Batch. Like, couldn't we get an episode like that? Or couldn't we get episodes where like they encounter clones whose fate we don't necessarily know? Like, I mean, the only one that comes to mind who I know is what isn't officially dead in canon, I guess, is Appo, that the one from the 501st. But and you don't even have to have clones that we knew from the Clone Wars. Like, they could just encounter brand new clones that are struggling. Like, these, like, that's why I'm so disappointed in this season, because I was really hoping to get more of like dealing with like clones dealing with the fact that because this is a real emotional thing with the clones, where they were bred for a single purpose, according to Palpatine, to give him his army so that he could kill all the Jedi. And ironically, now a lot of these clones are realizing that the only people who ever really treated them with any respect and actually cared about them, those clones, you know, those clones, like, they killed those people. And now here they are, the guy who they pledged all of their loyalty to, he's about to discard them just like they're garbage. Like, this shit, like, episodes like this should just write themselves. And, you could, and to kind of go off of what I was saying earlier, like, couldn't we get some clones whose fate we don't know? Like, could we see, like, get an episode where maybe they encounter Commander Bly, the guy who was Ayla Sakura's commander, see how he felt about having to kill Ayla Sakura? Could we see Commander Bakara, the one who served under Kiadi Mundi, because he didn't really appear much in the Clone Wars, so we could get some development for him? Or Could we get an episode where maybe they encounter a clone who's more inclined to just, blindly follow the Empire, like Commander Neo? He's that one who shot during the Order 66 scene. He's on the speeder bike, and then he reverses and kills that Jedi. Because according to like all sources, like he's one of those people who said like, "Oh yeah, I killed the Jedi, and I'll do it again if I was asked to." Like, could we get an episode with him? Because he only has like one cameo where he doesn't speak in the original Clone Wars series. Like, and maybe I'm asking too much. I realize that, but I just wish that they did more and didn't get like. And some of these filler episodes are fun to watch, but just when you think about where this season, like what the original season set up and like what they're going through and all this deep stuff, I just feel like the filler episodes are just huge wasted opportunities. And I am really hoping and praying to God that season 3 gives me more of what I'm asking for. Because it's not bad by any means, because when it's good, it's some of the best I've ever seen, but these filler episodes bug me. I'm sorry. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, I have the same thoughts you do. Maybe not as like passionately said as you did, but definitely, yeah, the season is a bit of a disappointment because I gave season one a pass on this when I gave it that score of an 8, just because okay, we're in season one. You got to do some world building to give us the lay of the land for who the clones are, what's the state of the empire. But honestly, Nate, I expected season two to begin delving into the Omega mystery, and we didn't get anything about the Omega mystery until literally the last line of the season when she says, "I'm your sister." And I'm sitting here like, but why does that matter? Who are you? Why does Omega matter? Why is he here? Like, these are things I want to know. And yeah, all the things about the clones that we didn't get to get any closure on that you mentioned, yeah, I'd like to hear about them as well. But honestly, if we never got that, I would be okay with it if we would have had better story writing to explain why Omega is such an important character. Why does everyone want her? I understand she has the pure genetic material, but what does that really mean? I mean, the way it was explained to me on Reddit a year ago before I had watched any of this stuff was Bad Batch would be the precursor to explain Palpatine's cloning fiasco in the sequel trilogy. But up until now, we've gotten very vague one line references to it in the last episode of this season when they say Palpatine has orders for you, and he said, I don't think it's possible, and they said, well, make it possible. I'm just sitting here like, okay, are y'all working on cloning Palpatine so he can come back to life if he ever dies? Because spoilers, he dies in the original trilogy. So, like, there's a lot of potential here to help world build, and one of the things that Filoni is most beloved for, in my opinion, aside from writing fantastic content, was he made our generation of fans go from hating the prequels to loving the prequels and loving the Clone War era. And I was kind of hoping, in some weird way, that the Bad Batch would begin to do the reparations that we needed to make the sequel trilogy at least passable. And it didn't really do that yet. Maybe season 3 does it, but up until now we haven't gotten that. And that's a big order for us to be filling, but still, you know, we're talking about cloning, and around the same time that this all started coming out, we start getting stuff about Palpatine cloning himself to, be living well after his death. I mean, come on. It basically writes itself that we could have done more here.
Yeah. And I want to clarify something, because what I just said would make it come off as if I'm one of these people who who just doesn't like this. Like, here's the thing: I really like this season. And because I give everything a chance. Okay, I'm not one of those people who just goes like, man, everything that Disney puts out is just automatically terrible. Like, I'm not. I can't stand those people, and I'm not like that. But I I like this, but I I just it there are some decisions that they make that just kind of irritate me a little bit, and I'm not going to give it a low score. I'll give my final score in a little bit, but I want to clarify, like, Dave Filoni has given us some of the most amazing Star Wars stuff, and he does give us a lot of amazing stuff here. But when this season drags, it really, really drags, and it bothers me a lot.
I don't know if it's just me, Nate, but did you ever feel like some of the filler episodes were kind of a chore to get through?
Uh, yeah. In fact, I'm gonna be honest. Like, when that episode revolving around Pabu, like, I actually watched it for the first time. When I went watched it all the way through for the first time shortly before this podcast, because I remember watching like the first half of it and just getting kind of bored with it and stopping it, and then I just kind of, I didn't necessarily give up on the show, but it wasn't my top priority to watch. It wasn't until like I started seeing like the finale getting really good reviews that I thought, okay, yeah, I have to watch this finale then. But like, yeah, like some of those fillers did feel like a legitimate chore to get through.
I mean, honestly, I think the Pabu filler was some of the better filler because I enjoyed the interpersonal struggles that Hunter and Tech were going through, grappling with the soldier life and the civilian life.
Yeah, that was
But
one of the better ones, but like, did we need an episode where we see the Zillow Beast again?
did we need an episode with the for the racing? Like, was that necessary?
No.
Like, I'll be honest with you, I had to restart that episode twice because I got distracted and I didn't pay attention for like 10 minutes of the episode. I had to go back and rewind it and watch it again.
I mean, I liked the race episode just for some mindless fun here and there,
Yeah,
but
but
but it
it wasn't engaging.
yeah, I know. And again, like,
So,
I'm really hoping that, I mean, and maybe I'm just asking too much, kind of wanting to see some clones that we kind of know from the Clone Wars, or I don't know, maybe expanding upon some clones that didn't get to appear much in the Clone Wars, but they were established. Like, I don't know, I would have liked to see, I really would have liked to see Neo in the, like, Neo for I've already explained who Neo is, just because people have established that, like, even in canon he's allegedly like someone who never really liked the Jedi and like happily executed Order 66, and the same with Bakara. I really want to
mhm.
see what those types of clones are like in this time. So, like, there are so many opportunities that you have with this time period given the premise of the show, and please let season 3 take full advantage of those, because this season just wasted those opportunities.
Yeah.
And I mean, and thankfully, I think they're going to, because I've seen that. I haven't gotten into season 3 yet, but I've seen the trailers, and I know Wolf is going to be there. Thank God. And I can stomach not seeing Neo or Bakara or Bly. I'm hoping, but I don't have my expectations. But just get, I don't know. Like, I'm just really hoping that season 3 really takes more advantage of this whole existential crisis that clones are going through.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I still like, regardless of everything I said, I still like this, because, like I said, like the Cody episode and like Tech's death and that other episode where Crosshair and Mayday go through their whole thing, that's still some of the best Star Wars animated content I've seen, and that's why, as much as I have issues with this season, I can't hate it, and that's why I'm gonna give it a 7.5. Because
Yeah, I was going to give it the same thing.
Yeah, because that's the thing that I hate most about this season. Despite all these complaints that I have about this, I still can't hate you because you still gave me some amazing stuff that I did want. So it's like can't you just not even give me those just so I can hate you at least, so I don't have to give myself a headache deciding how I feel about you? Like, you get what I'm trying to say?
No, can't do that. Must be one or the other.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I despite everything I just said, I can't hate this. I still give it a
Yeah.
7.5. It's still good. And yeah, that's the thing that I hate the most about this. Still can't hate it.
No, definitely. But yeah, I don't have anything else to add on. I mean, 7.5 is what I want to give this as well, and I think we've kind of beat the dead horse here on the disappointment we have with the season as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, time to wrap this thing up, and let's get on to season 3.
Yep. So that wraps up this podcast. We're not going to be looking at season 3 immediately. We'll review season 3 as it finishes. We still have to do our Return of a Jedi review, which we'll get on as soon as we can. And after that, I mean, after that, and after we do Bad Batch, I mean, there's only one other animated show that we have to watch. The Goat, the Clone Wars. We definitely have to watch that, and we're also gonna take a look at the 2003 Clone Wars series, just for the heck of it, just to kind of give our thoughts. Even though it's not considered canon anymore, it still would be interesting to take a look at. That shouldn't take us too long. And of course, we're going to be taking a look at the prequel movies, and we'll be reviewing Acolyte as it comes out. Yeah, we definitely
Yep.
have a lot of stuff planned for you guys.
And our 1 year anniversary is coming up in almost 1 month.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, 1 month from when we recorded this, probably 3 weeks from when we published it.
Yeah. But with that said, we thank you guys so much for listening. If you're on YouTube listening to this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and leave any comments down below with your thoughts on Bad Batch. If you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes, first of all, we love you for that. And you can reach out to us on animesecrets.org to give us feedback. And you can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and all our other social media pages to keep up with our other podcasts like Animated Classified and the Toku Secrets podcast. And, give us, any thoughts on, possibly like, what other stuff you'd like us to cover, or any novels that you would like to see us review. Because I'll definitely get on it, especially if I've already read those novels. But yeah, that about wraps this up. So once again, we thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you guys next time when we take a look at either Return of a Jedi or Bad Batch Season 3. But until that time, you guys stay safe. We love you, and may the Force be with you.